Yo, what it do, YouTube? It's your boy ColtsTalk. We are back with another video, and today this is victory week for the Indianapolis Colts. But before I get into it, I'd like to appreciate each and every one of your support. Like, comment, subscribe, and if you have tuned into the live stream for this game week 2, the Indianapolis Colts versus the Houston Texans, I appreciate you. I really do. It was awesome. The game was great. The interactions was great. But let's hop into the game, shall we? Let's go ahead and talk about the Colts' victory over the Houston Texans. It was getting a little shaky towards the end, but without a doubt, I think most Colts fans knew after the third drive that the Colts were going to win this game. And this is not to brag or anything of that nature. It's just that the way that the game was moving is that you kind of knew. You had this feeling that the Colts was going to win. You just knew. Even before the game with the predictions as the week went on, that prior week when all the injuries started to come out for the Houston Texans, and then at the last day, which was pretty much Saturday or Friday, they announced that C.J. Stroud had a shoulder injury. A shoulder injury. You kind of had this feeling. It was like, you know what, the Colts might walk away with this one, and they pretty much did. The Colts dominated in all four phases. The defense was strong. The offense was all cylinders, and you just was. It was a good day to be a Colts fan. It really was, honestly. And you can't really take anything away from the Texans or the Colts. You can't say a lot of bad things about the game. Of course, you could have been better in certain parts, but I think in reality, if you look at it, you just start to understand that the Colts just played football. That's all it was to it. And we're gonna hop into it. We're gonna start off with the defense. I think the defense did an outstanding job again. Towards the end of the game when the Texans were starting to move the chains, and at the end of the game, we just needed one more stop, and the Colts pretty much did that. Even on the last play of the last drive at the end of the game, DeForest Buckner got a sack to end it. But the biggest issue was probably the secondary. The secondary was probably the biggest issue for the Colts. And I'm talking about the Colts here. The Colts secondary was the worst part. When it just comes to Darrell Baker Jr., Darrell Baker Jr. did not have his strongest game. It was sad to watch because he was just getting picked apart, man. He was getting picked on the whole game, and he just couldn't seem to figure it out. The poor tackling from the secondary was an issue, and Darrell Baker Jr. definitely. Hopefully, he gets better. And this was a guy that had a good offseason. He had a good training camp, had a good preseason. And he was a standout for sure. He was a guy that a lot of Colts fans was like, Darrell Baker Jr. can have a good year. And this was just one of those games where you could he just couldn't figure it out. That's all it was. He just couldn't figure it out. And unfortunately, hopefully he can pick it back up next week. Even though next week isn't another test, is it next week is another test. Hopefully he can figure it out. But it's going to be a big one. But this week was just a sad week for him. He just couldn't get it together. Hopefully he can bounce back. And we've seen things like this happen with young corners uh, before, especially in Indianapolis. This is a lot of times. This always happens. So hopefully he can figure it out and get it together. But it is what it is at the end of the day. But other than that, the other secondaries, Kenny Moore, he had a good game. He had an actually outstanding game. I wasn't expecting that from Kenny Moore, but he did what he had to do, and he stepped up to the plate. Um, he stepped up to the plate and had a very good game. So other than that, when you come to the linebacker group, Shaquille Leonard, EJ Speed, Zaire Franklin, they were solid, all for sure. They were all solid. Other than that, the linebacker group, the D line, the edge rush was amazing. The edge rush, they put pressure on CJ Stroud the whole game. And my comment section was talking about pressure rates with CJ Stroud. A lot of people was talking about, oh, we need more pressure, but I think compared to what it could be, I think they did a pretty solid job. They was forcing him to get the ball out pretty quick. And I think the second half was a little bit lackluster. I think they came out really good in the first half. The edge rush came out really good in the first half. The second half was a little rusty in my opinion, but I think they did enough to get the job done. Quiddy Pay had a very good game. Dio was there. Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner was just wreaking havoc. EJ Speed, he blew up one of those plays. He just shot the gap and got his own sack. So shout out to EJ Speed on that play. When it comes to the safety group, it's not nothing to really talk about at that department because there wasn't a lot of deep balls being thrown just due to the pressure radius. But a lot of passes was caught on the sideline or in the middle of the field. So we can go ahead and move over to the offensive side for the Colts. The offense was just it was something that we wanted to see. Zach Moss, again, I mentioned Zach Moss last week, and this was something that we needed. We needed. A lot of people was talking about Jonathan Taylor last week. Oh, Jonathan Taylor would have did this. Jonathan Taylor would have did that. But I was like, all we needed is Zach Moss. Zach Moss is a really good runner. He's patient and he's aggressive. And he's patient, but he's very strong patient. Like he finds his holes, he finds his cuts, and he gets it done. And he got a touchdown, and he pretty much was the guy that moves the chains for the offense. And this was even before Anthony Richardson went out, which we're going to talk about next. But the run game was definitely something of positivity and progression that we needed to see, especially after last week's debacle. All it shows is that we needed running back one on the field, and that was Zach Moss. He got it done. So shout out to Zach Moss. It was good to see him back on the field, and the angry runner was just him. He was just his natural self, and it was something good to see. The wide receiver room definitely took a step up today after last week's, mishaps. I think Alec Pierce had a very good job today. Once he was targeted from Gardner Minshew, he was catching everything. Michael Pittman Jr. had a good game. Even after the fumble scare on the first opening drive, he fumbled. But after that, he seemed to pick it up. Whenever he got targeted, he caught the ball. Kylan Granson had a good game. And a surprising one was Will Mallory. He just got called up after Ogletree went down and was not able to play before the game. They called up Will Mallory that week. And Will Mallory stepped in, and he just had an amazing game. Blocking, catching, all of those, because he just was open. He was just a very premier target. And it was awesome to see him out there, making a name for himself in a very big division game. So this is a game that the Colts needed to win. So this was awesome for Will Mallory. Other than that, Kylan Granson caught a touchdown today, his first touchdown. That was dope. I didn't think they was going to count the touchdown because, he hit the pylon. So it was definitely dope to see him catch the touchdown. And on to Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson, he was just a shell of himself. He was hitting on all cylinders. There was a few passes that sailed, but other than that, he was just the biggest threat that the Texans couldn't stop. And in reality, if Anthony Richardson never got checked into a self protocol for concussion, I think the game would have been worse because they just didn't have an answer to stop him. He was just wreaking havoc the whole game while he was available, man. He was just a dog, and I think he probably would have scored even more if he would have stayed in the game. But he checked himself out just to make sure he was safe, because on the second touchdown when he got tackled out of bounds, he banged his head on the grass pretty hard from what it looked like in the replay. But it was just a protocol. They didn't label it as a concussion, but he went in there just for safety, so that was a good thing to see. But yeah, other than that, Anthony Richardson had a game, but Gardner Minshew stepped in. He did what he had to do. This is the perfect backup quarterback for a guy like Anthony Richardson, because we know what we're going to get out of Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew was hitting on all cylinders, man, and he was the one that got Alec Pierce involved. And a lot of people was questioning if Alec Pierce was going to ever get involved into the system. And Gardner Minshew stepped in and did that. And Gardner Minshew was the one that got Kylan Granson his first touchdown. It was just awesome to see, because I was a Minshew fan coming into this season, and before that, I always wanted Minshew. So the fact that he got out there and Richardson went out, and the fact that we can trust him to play quarterback for the rest of the game was just the greatest thing, the greatest feeling ever. They had some drives when it didn't go nowhere, but other than that, once Minshew first came in, he was rolling. Minshew was rolling, man. He knows the system, getting the guys involved, hitting his targets, and man, it was just a good thing to see for Colts football. C.J. Stroud, on the other hand, my takeaways from Houston, Nico Collins is a dog. We knew Nico Collins was going to be, going crazy, because in my prediction video, I mentioned that Brandon Cooks used to be the guy to wreak havoc for the Colts, against the Colts. But now that he's gone, I felt like Nico Collins was going to step into his role and have himself a game, and he did that. He really had a good game, man. It was just no answer. And Darrell Baker Jr. was just the one that happened to get targeted, and Nico Collins just happened to be the guy in that area. So Nico Collins had a good game. Tate Dale, he stepped up a few plays. Dalton Schultz picked it up in the second half for them. But other than that, in reality, like, their defense was banged up. The Texans' offensive line was banged up, so it was nothing much that they can really do. C.J. Stroud was banged up, but they tried to make a way out of nothing. So you appreciate the effort and, the fight that they tried to bring out there. I feel like if they were healthy, it would have been a better game. But I still think the Colts would have pulled it out, in all honesty. This is not me being biased. I just think with Anthony Richardson and how much of a threat he was, and Gardner was hitting on all cylinders, I just don't see how the Texans could figure it out towards the end. But, they put up a good game, man. It was a good game to watch. The Colts pulled out the victory. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section about the game. Who do you think stood out? Who do you think needs to be questioned going into next week? All of these things in the comment section. Let me know your thoughts about Anthony Richardson as well. This is Marcus, and until next time, you've been Culture Shock.